All right, everybody, welcome back here. As you know, of course, we've reviewed the newest Metallica album, 72 Seasons, a couple, I think, like either last week or week before. So that means, of course, now it's time to do an updated ranking and see where that thing lies compared to, all the other albums that they've got. So we're looking at 13 albums now. And I can tell you this, too, that uh, from, even a few weeks ago, from my ranking of Metallica's albums without 72 seasons. It's already shifted. There's been some things shifting a little bit more than I thought so, but that's just kind of how it goes. You start listening to an album or two, and you're like, oh man, I kind of want to boot this one up or move this one down. That's just kind of how this thing goes. It's like forever changing, right? So that's definitely how. I mean, you're not gonna see the same exact list with just this inserted in there. I can assure you that. I thought that may have been the case, but no. It definitely, some stuff changed around, so it should be pretty interesting. Anyways, we'll just go ahead and kick it right off. This has not changed. Number 13, Reload. You guys saw, my disdain for this album here. 1997, this is like the leftovers of Load. And it's not good. Which is crazy to me, considering you guys, I love Load. But this one just doesn't do it for me. You got Fuel that opens it up. I do not like that song. It's just so corny. I heard someone call it, describe it as sounding like a parody of Metallica. And that's really what it sounds like to me. I do not like Fuel. The Memory Remains. It's all cool and kind of doomy and sludgy until you get that weird lady coming in at the end there. And that just, I always end up cracking up because it's so weird, right? But the Unforgiven 2, that's actually a pretty solid track. I could say that. Better Than You's pretty solid. Carpe Diem Baby, Bad Seed, Where the Wild Things Are. And then, I mean, even those are just not that great, though. They're okay. Now, Fixer is actually pretty freaking badass. That's probably the best song off here. I would say that, or Carpe Diem Baby. That one's just really hooky. But, other than that, I mean, I don't care for Low Man's Lyric, Prince Charming. I mean, this stuff, Slither's not that good. And really, even Better Than You's not that great, really. This album is just not good to me. I've tried and tried with this thing, and it's only gotten worse over the years as far as listens go. Because I've not listened to this album too many times over the years, probably 3 or 4, right? Each time I've liked it less and less. So, number 13 remains, the memory remains, right? For this one, staying at rank number 13. Rank number 12. Already we're into some pretty solid stuff here. I know some people won't count it, but Garage Inc. And it is covers, so it's going to rank below a lot of stuff. And I think this is one of the greatest cover albums out there. I mean, it's got a whole, 2 discs of a whole slew of different kinds of genres and such being covered. I mean, you've got, their cover of Saber Cadabra, which also includes National Acrobat for Sabbath, kind of meshed into one cover. Amazing stuff there. You've got Turn the Page, just beautiful. Probably one of the best off here. Die Die My Darling by the Misfits, awesome. The Merciful Fate cover, which really, obviously, there's not a song called Merciful Fate, but it's like a big amalgamation of a lot of classic Merciful Fate tracks. Then we've got Whiskey in the Jar. Everybody knows that one. Really cool, Thin Lizzy. Really dates back even further to like an Irish folk song cover. Tuesdays Gone, awesome stuff. Love their cover of that too, one of my favorites. Then you got on disc 2, like a lot of the stuff that they've just kind of covered over the years, not the new recordings, but things like Crash Course and Brain Surgery, Am I Evil, Bread Fan, by Budgie, Stone Cold Crazy by Queen. You've got Overkill. And there's a bunch of like Motorhead covers there. tacked on at the end along with Overkill and everything. So it's an awesome variety. Now it's lengthy as all get out because it is 2 discs and everything, but you know, I really dig this album. I think it's solid stuff. You can't really there's a little bit of something for everybody on there, but it is covers, so I kind of rank it near the back. But that should tell you something. If I would rather be jamming to this cover album than freaking Reload, right? This is solid stuff right here. So then number 11, we'd have to go with the EP here, Beyond Magnetic. A lot of people don't really count this one or really talk about this one either, but you know, it's only got the 4 tracks on it, but they're all so freaking good because y'all know I love Death Magnetic. So, with that, these are just leftover tracks. You got, I love Just a Bullet Away. That song's, you know, a tribute to or and about Lane Staley, Alice in Chains frontman. And it's just a really badass song too. Hell and Back, Rebel of Babylon, and Hate Train's of course solid too. But my favorite two are Just a Bullet Away and Rebel of Babylon. But those just killer stuff, man. Just heavy hitting thrash right there that you can't really go wrong with. But that's about all there really is to say about it because it is just 4 songs. That's kind of why it ranks down here. And now number 10. This one moved down, I think, a spot or two. Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And I do love this album, man. I've grown to love it more over the years. I think I ranked it. I think it was like, to be exact, I think two spots up. So it went down 2. And really a lot of that has to do with kind of this one. Obviously, I'm not opposed to double albums, right? I love double albums. But to me, this one it feels like it could have been paced better. I love the title track, Hardwired, Atlas Rise, one of my favorites. Now That We're Dead, Moth into a Flame, Dream No More is probably my favorite off here. Love Halo on Fire. And then, you go on to disc 2 that's got, it's just quite a bit, that's all good stuff, right? But it's a lot. I feel like that could have been an EP, disc 2, honestly. I mean, Spit Out the Bones, one of the best tracks off this album as a whole, and that's on, the closer of disc 2. But, Am I Savage, I'm not too fond of. Here Comes Revenge. They're just they kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I think maybe if some of those heavy hitters, just incredible tracks off that first disc were placed over on the disc 2, and kind of dispersed a little bit better, maybe we would have a bit, this would maybe rank back up to where I had it on the last ranking or even higher. But I think it kind of makes for a droning listen. It's like, oh, you get it's like they showed you all their cards right off the bat, and then you just kind of get some ones that aren't too great to me, at least. But they're not bad songs. But yeah, just the pacing of this album is kind of what made it drop down a couple spots for me. So there's number 10. Number 9. I know I get some flack for this, right? But number 9, I'm going to go with Kill 'Em All. And I mean, this one I think ranked down maybe 1 spot or so. And I know this is a lot of people's just absolute favorite. And I love this album, man. I mean, it's a very historic record. I just think, and it's very, garage sounding, which adds to it, right? The kind of shitty production is a plus, I think, on this record. But I prefer a lot of their more mature sounding records. And I think they grew a lot as a band over the years. But I mean, obviously, you can't go wrong with stuff like Hit the Lights and the Four Horsemen. I mean, come on. Motor Breath, Jump in the Fire. I love the bass solo of from Cliff on this one. Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth. Whiplash, one of the all-time greats. Phantom Lord is one of my favorites. Deep Cut off here. Seek and Destroy is an all-time classic. I mean, there's not a bad song on here. Even No Remorse and Metal Militia, just fantastic tracks. But I just think they've released a lot better material out there. And again, I know it's controversial as all get out. I could take the heat for it or whatever, but that's just how I feel about it. Is that this album? It's very historic, amazing record. Pop it on any time. I'm having a blast, right? But I just think there's better stuff that the guys have done. Then we'll go with number 8, the Black Album. And yeah, it's there. It's just sleeved up, so it's kind of hard to see the the snake and. Let's see here. You can maybe see it there on camera. Be on this corner here. There is the snake. The little Metallica logo up on there somewhere, right? Kind of hard to see in the camera, but you know, this one ranked up a spot, and you know, because I had Kill 'Em All actually above it, but I kind of, you know, again, it goes back to the, and those two really, they go back and forth to me in particular. This one, Kill 'Em All, because this one does have, you know, your Inner Sandman, just, a lot of the stuff that you don't really care to hear much anymore. If you've heard too many times, like Nothing Else Matters, Sad But True is starting to get on my nerves because it's in the newest WWE game, right? And I've been playing the hell out of that, and that's just constantly playing in the menu. I'm like, damn. But I mean, even before that, though, I was kind of like, this track. I mean, it's a good song, and all those songs I think are good songs. I've heard them so many times that they don't really do too much for me. But it's really these deep cuts that I got to thinking about again. You know, My Friend of Misery is one of my favorites. Off here, and just a beautiful bass line from Jason. The Unforgiven is one that is overplayed for sure, but I still really love that one. Wherever I May Roam, I love Through the Nevers, the deep cut that is absolutely top tier for me. Same with The God That Failed. The riff on that thing is sick. So it's those deep cuts that really push this thing up for me, despite having some of those ones that I'm like, okay, I don't really need to hear. But I mean, even the ones I didn't just mention that aren't some of my like top tier favorites off here, but like, you know, Don't Tread on Me, Holier Than Thou. I mean, and I didn't even mention of Wolf of Man. That's one of my favorites too. But just fantastic stuff, and it's very mature sounding record. Very it just insanely well produced by Bob Rock as well. So I mean, I love this thing here, and I think, I mean, hell, it could swap with Kill 'Em All tomorrow with these things, depending on which one I'm listening to, right? Those ones I always kind of had a hard time deciding. But here today, we're going to go ahead and put it right here at number 8. Number 7. I know this is also a big-time controversy, but yeah, I love Saint Anger, and I used to hate it. As you guys know, I used to absolutely hate this album. But then something clicked, man, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, man, this is not as bad as I thought. Then as the years go on, each time I end up coming back to it, I'm like, man, this is a heavy as hell freaking record, and the shitty production is great. I love that about it. I love the tin pan banging drums, even though, you know, it sounds just crazy and chaotic and all that. But the anger and the emotion in this album, you feel it in every song, like Frantic. Man, I love that song, dude. Like, Lifestyle, Determines My Death Style. I mean, super cool stuff. The song Saint Anger, which I think most people agree that they're like, okay, that's not a bad song. And I've always loved that song. Some Kind of Monster's got a hell of a groove to it, man. And again, there's also lengthy songs on here, like with Some Kind of Monster and Saint Anger and all that. Shoot Me Again is badass, man. The Sweet Amber, the Unnamed Feeling has become my favorite off here. Like, absolutely. I love James's vocals on here and just the pacing of that track. And again, just the pissed off nature of it. And then even the closing track, All Within My Hands, is heavy as hell and just amazing stuff. And again, you know, I know that it's a controversial pick for sure to be up here. Most people have it dead last, right? But there's something about this album that has aged very well for me. And I just continue to come back to it and end up loving it more each time. And I know there's a lot of, you know, ones that are like, okay, you know, like Invisible Kid's alright, not one of my favorites. But like Purify is not one of my favorites. Same with Dirty Window, but they're so good. And it's those ones those several that I just listed off before those, though, that just carry this thing and just continue to sink their teeth into me and make me really, really freaking dig Saint Anger. So then we'll go with number 6. That's right, 72 Seasons. The new one is cracked here right at number 6. And you know what? Hell, it was going to rank lower. But this is another one that just, once it sinks its teeth into you, man, it just keeps biting down harder. Really dug the album the first listen. Second listen, still digging it. Third, I can't stop. I can't put this thing down. I just keep jamming to it, man, and just really appreciating these songs more and more. Like Shadows Follow. Oh, man. One of the best off here. Love the riff. Just love the groove of that one. Enamorada is my favorite off here. It sounds like it's like one of them epics that you maybe hear, but with the breakdown and everything on Master of Puppets or And Justice for All, right? Yeah, I mean, I've even grown to love Lux Eterna. Screaming Suicide's one of my favorites. Crown of Barbed Wire. In the title track, 72 Seasons, You Must Burn. I mean, there's so much just great stuff on here. And really, the pacing, too, I think is very well paced. Like, it doesn't, unlike Hardwired, it really, because I was really comparing those two. I'm like, is it better than Hardwired? And I think it's quite a bit better than Hardwired, obviously. But I think the pacing is so much better than that last album, because there's a lot of fast-paced ones here going, and you don't feel like anything's kind of dragging along. And, from beginning to end, you have it very well spaced out of, at least for me, like where my favorites lie, in between some of the ones that I'm like, okay, they're awesome, but not quite my favorites. And just straight up fantastic stuff. I love this album. I know it's got, well, and really it's received mostly positive reception from what I've seen, and a lot of other people's reviews. They've at least been like, 3 out of 5, decent, right? So, and then I'm sure some people out there are still, or hate it or whatever, and I get that too, but for me, I've just I've grown to already love this thing, man. I think it's going to age very, very well. So I just keep jamming to this thing, man. Love it. Maybe give it a couple more listens if it still hasn't got you yet, and maybe see if it can capture you like it has me. So right number 6, 72 Seasons. Very proud of that album ranking up that high for me. Number 5, Ride the Lightning. And this one is a lot of people's favorites as well. Hell, it used to be my favorite Metallica album. But it seems like to me, over the years, it's kind of dropped a little bit. Mainly because, like For Whom the Bell Tolls, I hear all the time in the haunted house that I work in volunteer in October. That's one of the songs on that playlist. Just keeps on playing. Same with Creeping Death. And I love those songs, right? They're badass songs, especially Creeping Death. But it's kind of, hearing those over and over again is kind of, decreased the stock in them for me. But you can't go wrong with Ride the Lightning, the track, or Fade to Black, which is just hauntingly beautiful, man. One of my all-time favorite Metallica songs. Trapped Under Ice, the instrumental, Call of Cthulhu, Fight Fire with Fire. I mean, even Escape I like, even though it's one of my least favorites off here. But yeah, this is an all-time classic, man. A 80s metal gem, thrash metal gem that shines through so well still to this day, and is still known as one of the all-time thrash metal greats. And again, it just kind of, it's just the overplaying of two of those songs, even though I still do dig them, that's kind of dropped it down. And I've just also, it's, for the albums in front of it, I've grown to appreciate some of them even more. And particularly, number 4 coming up here, Load, which I've always loved. And I know that's controversial, but I've always loved this album. I think, for a pretty lengthy record, that even the pacing's solid on this one too. I just love the different direction Metallica took with this one. Very, very different direction musically, and people were saying they sold out and all this and that. But if they sold out, they would have been kept doing the same thing over and over again because that's what was making the most money. But they took a risk, took a gamble, and it got very terrible reception. But, the more, I think as the years have gone by, I mean, I've seen more people kind of come out and be like, hey, I actually really dig that album, but because it's got some heavy freaking moments, man. I love The House That Jack Built. That is just a fantastic song. One of my favorites off here. Same with Until It Sleeps. I love the, really, I love the watery kind of distortion in the verses of that song on guitar. King Nothing's a freaking badass track. Come on. That bass line from Jason Newsted's awesome. Bleeding Me has always been one of my favorites off here. Wasting My Hate, cool kind of bluesy one. I even like Mama Said off here, even though I don't really like country music all that much. Like barely at all. I like country music. I mean, I never go out of my way to listen to it. But with country music that is. But Mama Said, that song is pretty damn good. Ronnie, another cool kind of southern, bluesy kind of sounding one, and The Outlaw Torn, man. Come on. That's one of my favorite Kirk Hammett solos there at the end ever. Love the epic feel of that one. That's my favorite track off here, period. And hell, I even like, some of the ones I didn't mention, like Ain't My Bitch and 2x4. All solid stuff on here. I mean, it does have, like, Hero of the Day is not one of my favorites. And, Thorn Within and Poor Twisted Me, Cure. Those are not some of my favorites, but they're all decent enough. But this thing's just, pun intended here. It's loaded, right, with a lot of great stuff that I've always loved, and have only grown to love even more as the years have gone by with this thing. So the different direction, not a problem with me. Now, is it Metallica that I'm usually, if I'm wanting to listen to like the Metallica sound, right, and that's what I'm gunning for that thrash Metallica? Is it the one that I'm immediately going to grab off the shelf? Obviously not. But that's why, there's stuff above it. And, but, whenever you're really in the mood for this kind of Metallica right here, or this kind of stuff, it's just freaking fantastic. Love this album. Number 3, Death Magnetic. This thing ain't going nowhere at my top 3, guys. I love this thing. Talk about, return to form, just heavy as hell thrash. I know a lot of people have, talked about how terrible the production is on this one, real muddy, and I do kind of get that, especially on the past listen. Actually, I was like, man, the production is kind of, I mean, hell, I think because you think they would have maybe went with more of like the Black Album production wise, right, or something, but that doesn't ruin it for me, man, because the songs are just so freaking strong. It's like Injustice for All Part 2 with, That Was Just Your Life, the end of the line. I mean, that riff from that one, it just makes you headbang. Broken, Beaten, Scarred. Broken, Beaten, and Scarred. Man, one of my all-time favorites off here, man. And I love just the power of that riff and the vocals. And The Day That Never Comes is just an epic right there. Beautiful tune. And then All Nightmare Long, just, man, another really freaking hooky one. Cyanide. Love the groove of that one. The Unforgiven 3 is pretty freaking sick. I like it better than The Unforgiven 2. The Judas Kiss, another solid one, even though it's probably one of my least favorites off here. Suicide Redemption, the very underrated instrumental, I think. And then My Apocalypse, the closer, which is also one of my least favorites off here. But man, just constant greatness for me off here. And I just, ever since I first heard this album, it just clicked with me. And I'm like, man, I mean, it's just a blast. Heavy blast. Even in the production department, it kind of, the old loudness wars kind of thing, right? But I don't think the production's like, dog shit or anything. Like, it's still, it's not the greatest production or anything. But I definitely, since last reviewing this album and ranking it, I was like, man, yeah, I kind of am seeing what people were talking about that production not being, up to par with a lot of their other stuff. But those songs on this are just so freaking strong. The pacing of them, the flow of this album, the heaviness, everything about it, just the message behind it. I'm all about it, man. Death Magnetic is top freaking 3, number 3. But number 2 is Injustice for All. And if anything's ever come close to, pushing up to number one, it's this one, because it's got the time change, the progginess. The production's weird because of the lack of a bass sound on it for the most part, but it kind of helps it album get this kind of dry drum feeling, that, and I mean that in a good way, like a very unique sound that they've never really captured again. And I mean, hell, you get Blackened on here. You got the title track and Just for All. Eye of the Beholder's just probably my favorite off here, along with Harvester of Sorrow. And To Live Is to Die is a freaking beautiful instrumental. That one was even wrote by Cliff. Just a beautiful, that was like his message there. That final piece, that he got to leave to the guys. One, even though that's a massive hit for the guys, just fantastic song. I mean, come on. Shortest Straw, Frayed Ends of Sanity, Dyer's Eve, everything off here is just fantastic and epic. And again, the sound to me is just very, very unique. I've never quite heard of, and obviously I'm not suggesting, hey, let's take out the bass of any future albums, because I prefer hearing, even Robert Trujillo on the latest record is, I think it's the most we've ever been able to hear him, and the best stuff he's ever done. But it definitely, what they did to Jason was pretty bad, but I mean, it has a very, very unique sound to the album. And you can look up versions of this and Justice for Jason or whatever, right, where they kind of amped up the bass on it a little bit more. But to me, it sounds, this is the way it was released, this is the way we've heard it for all these years, this is the way I want to hear it, right? And just incredible album. And I know some people who this is their number one, and I don't blame them at all. But to me, it remains at number one. Master of Puppets. Just this album is legendary. This is the guys that they're just absolute best. Battery from those acoustic chords getting strummed, jumping right into just a freaking blast of an attack of this song is just incredible. The title track, Master of Puppets, I know it's been getting some big, a lot more overplayed lately or whatever for a lot of people, but I've always loved that song, and I love the breakdown. I mean, hell, it's an almost 9-minute epic. Love it. The Thing That Should Not Be's are really, really cool, and love the time changes. Welcome Home Sanitarium, tied with my favorite Metallica song of all time. Even Disposable Hero is just a freaking badass one. Love the story it tells. And that one, Leper Messiah, is really cool. Orion, that's what's tied with Sanitarium. Orion is a beautiful, very, to use the term again, hauntingly beautiful song that is just so dark, and yet almost hopeful at the same time. Just such a powerful instrumental, and one of my just favorite instrumental pieces out there. And then, of course, it closed out with Damage Incorporated, another kick-ass tune. Fantastic. Every song off here is just, man, something special. All killer, no filler. This thing is loaded, and it's just, ever since I've heard this album all the way through for the first time years and years ago, I was like, yep, that's the number one, and it's gonna be hard to top. And nothing ever has. Like I said before, I never heard this album. It was, years and years ago. Ride the Lightning was my favorite, but I hadn't heard this album yet, right? It was my favorite out of the ones I had heard at the time. But then this thing came along. I heard this, and it was on. So yeah, Master of Puppets, number one for me. That my top three did not change. But yeah, guys, it was very, very cool. I did a lot of thinking on where I was going to put 72 Seasons, and I think that album's going to age well and maybe stay around that territory. Hell, it may rise, may drop. You just never know with that sort of thing. But I'd love to see where you guys rank the new 72 Seasons album amongst all this very decorated discography we've delved into, and really just completed and then went back to, right? But very fun to go back even after just a couple of weeks off of the original ranking and go and do that, because you know some stuff shifted around, especially near like the bottom area, midway. But yeah, guys, let's see where you guys rank that new album, and if you guys are just watching this video without watching the other ranking, we'll just drop your rankings in general down here, man. I want to see what those are about, and you know, give your opinions. Do you disagree with my list? I'm sure a lot of you will. Maybe a lot of you will agree with it. Either way, that's cool. Let's talk about it down there. And of course, next time we're gonna be taking a look. We're continuing along in the Carcass road we've taken. Right, we're gonna be looking at their 1993 album, Hardwired. So stay tuned for that, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks.